So I realized sitting in the woods and 10, 12, 13 hours a day in a tree stand, and you just sitting there quiet, and you got stuff going on around you, but you're not part of it. You're just sitting there. You're waiting for something to happen. Like, why not cast? Why not throw a sound out there? A natural sound that deer make on a daily basis. Throw it out there. What's it going to hurt? It never hurt me, ever. It done nothing but help me. Many of these deer came to blind calling.
You've been doing this for a very long time. You invented the grunt call, and we're going to talk more about that in the conversation. But there has been so much in the media, and also just I think like personal experience with some people where they are so cautious to use a grunt call. They think it might do more harm than good. Not everybody's like that, but there are a lot of people out there like that. And they're also scared to call at a buck when it's looking at them, when they visually can see it. Where do you think that came from? Because you're like the complete opposite, and we're going to talk more about that.
That's interesting because even my dad, who I love the man dearly, and he loved to hunt deer, he never bought into making any noise in the woods when you hunted deer. That's how he was raised, and that's how he raised us boys. It was always be quiet, sit still, keep your eyes open, and you wait those deer out. You know, read the sign, do this, that, and the other. And I can't, I'll always remember when I came out with the grunt call, started making noise in the woods intentionally, hunting whitetails. Dad was like shaking his head. He never, ever bought into the idea. Of course, he quit deer hunting when I was a young man. His health wasn't good. And so he never got to grow into it. But it came from, that's history. That's how most of us older people were taught from our elders. The deer hunting is a quiet, sneaky sport. And the calling, the only noise, and they didn't know, but the only noise the deer made was a snort. And when they did that, they were running for cover. So deer didn't make noise. I've heard that a lot over the years, and all that animal don't make noise. They don't ever. All animals communicate, all of them, in one way or another. And if you can figure out what that communication means, how to mimic it and how to use it, you become pretty effective. So as a young man, I learned real early that, wow, that little weird sound I just made just put a buck 18 yards in front of me. That's pretty interesting. So me going, if it worked once, it's going to work again. And the more I got into it, the more I realized that, calling more is even better. And calling when things are quiet works well. And I've blind called in so many bucks over the years, it's not even funny. And I tell people it's like going fishing. Everybody likes to fish, and whatever, you go out in a boat, and you got your line tied on, you got the best lure you got. But if you don't cast, you don't catch. And if you're lazy and you're more out there for enjoying the weather instead of fishing, you're not making as many casts. You're not going to catch as many fish. You may not care. I care. I go fishing to catch fish. The more cast I can make, or the better chances are I've got a hooking up. I can remember my brother and I floating the rivers, and we'd get 1 hour in front. The other guy was in the back. He steered the canoe. Fisherman was in front. You got 1 hour. I tried to make 1,000 casts in that hour. The fastest I could cast and go and cover as much ground, I caught my limit of smallmouth. And when it come an hour, you had to get in the back, and he got up front. And it was multiple casts. So I realized sitting in the woods and 10, 12, 13 hours a day in a tree stand, and you just sitting there quiet, and you got stuff going on around you, but you're not part of it. You're just sitting there. You're waiting for something to happen. Like, why not cast? Why not throw a sound out there? A natural sound that deer make on a daily basis. Throw it out there. What's it going to hurt? It never hurt me, ever. It done nothing but help me. Many of these deer came to blind calling. I'm in an area because I saw the sign, what I wanted to hunt, the big sign, the amount of sign, whatever. I came in with good wind direction, got a good setup, and now I sit and wait. How can I enhance that? Well, a lot of guys say, no, that's as good as I can do. Nope. That call can reach out to places you can't see. Being raised in the Ozarks, I could see 30 yards from my tree stand. How many bucks were at 150, 200 yards, 300 yards away, browsing, walking, bedded, chasing? What? You don't know that. You're in your little globe, your little realm, but you're not reaching that. You're not casting out once in a while. So I learned to cast. I learned to throw that call every so often from my stand. And every once in a while, you hook up. Here they come. The only time I ever had it hurt me is when I'd make a cast, and next thing I know, my gut's growling. I want to get some crackers or something, and I'm digging in my pack, and the buck coming to the call, I didn't even know it, would see me moving. It was my fault, not the call's fault. You get caught once in a while. So I always tell people, when you make a cast, expect action. They may run in, they may walk in, they may sneak in, or they may just feed your way. You have just changed their direction of travel because of that sound. So it might be a minute, it might be 30 seconds, it might be 10 or 15 minutes later before they get to that call. So you're on red alert. Anytime you make a cast, expect action. And when you do that, you're going to have success. And when you get into when you start adding the rut layers to it, when the bucks are more active because of the pre-rut, rut, post-rut, it just enhances it that much more, and so it's a no-brainer. But that's how it gets. It's the way we were raised, and it also is a confidence thing. If you don't have confidence in your call, which a grunt call is the easiest game call ever, anybody that's breathing can blow a decent grunt call. It takes no technique like turkey calling with the mouth or duck and goose calling, elk bugling takes some technique. A grunt call is the simplest dang tool in the world. It's unreal.
Brad, we're about to go way down that rabbit hole. You were talking about how people didn't think that deer made any sounds back then. When did you realize that they did make sounds, like grunts and everything? Like, when's the first time you heard a deer grunt or knew someone that heard a deer grunt?
Well, actually, I learned to grunt deer before I ever heard one grunt, if that makes sense. I was working in a mining operation with a bunch of old crusty dudes like me, and we were young then, and all of them hunted, or a big percentage of them hunted, were good hunters. Some coon hunters, some, beagle guys, but everybody hunted something. And some of the group hunted a lot of different things and were good at it. And I had made friends with some of those guys, and we hunted together. And during one of our breaks, one of our 15-minute breaks at the mine, we're sitting there, and one of my little buddies, John Mannion, said, "Hey, man," he said, "my brother, Jim, heard a buck make this sound." I said, "Really?" And he pinched his own like that, better than that. But anyway, made that little sound, and I said, "Really? He heard a buck do it?" He said, "4-pointer standing right under him." He said, "I guarantee you he made it." Well, John showed me the techniques. I started practicing. The next weekend, I got up in a tree. I was hunting. Saw a 6-point buck coming by down Mingo Swamps. He was traveling. He was 80 yards out. I had my recurve, and that's 65 yards too far. And it's like, what do I got to lose? He's not coming. He's going somewhere. He's moving. I pinched my nose, made that sound, and he just stopped. He didn't look my way. He just stopped. I'm like, what the heck? And what do I do now? This is all new to me, but he'd stopped, and he's listening. I can see his ears. I grunted again, and boy, he threw his head looking right at the direction of my stand. I'm up 25 feet minimum in the swamp. And I thought, okay, he's looking for me. I grunted third time, and he marched right to me. Stopped at 18 yards broadside. I shot under him that far, missed him, clean miss. I figured it was nerves, I don't know. And he ran off. And I wasn't smart enough then to keep calling. He didn't know what happened, but I was learning this stuff. But he ran off. I thought, oh my gosh, what just happened? That's unreal. That was just... So I actually started grunting before I ever heard a buck grunt in the woods. And I mimicked the sound before because of someone sharing that with me, that he had heard it. To that point, I had never, in all the hunting camps and all the old people, and never had anybody ever say they heard a deer make any sound but a snort. And then you could dig into it. There was a bleat deer call on the market. It was called the Alaskan deer call, and it was a bleat. And they were using it up in Alaska on Sitka deer and blacktail, that little bleat sound. And so deer, there was a deer call out there, but there wasn't nothing like that. There was no grunt, and there was no snort calls back then. There was no snort wheeze. Nobody knew they did those things. It was interesting when I learned to do that. I mean, it just all fell back to my upbringing. My grandfather saying, make some noise at the right time, and the right noise, it'll help you kill things like squirrels and turkeys and things like that. Well, I thought, why not work on deer? It just worked for me. So this is all new. We got to dig into this because nobody was doing it. Nobody even heard it. Matter of fact, first time I talked to people about it, they laugh at me. Deer don't do that.
What year was that, do you think?
The year I grunted in my first deer was probably 1977. And I worked in the mine till the late 79. I worked in the mines, and then there was a big strike and got laid off. Well, I ended up going to work for Loman Game Calls in the early 80s. And when I came there, there was a little group of 3 or 4 of us that kept it quiet. We just grunted with our voice. We did our own thing. We started killing deer, manipulating deer, comparing notes with each other. I just happened to go on into the hunting industry. And when I got in the hunting industry, we're talking turkey calls and waterfowl calls, and nobody's talking deer calls. Nobody. No company, no person, no highfalutin outdoor rider or, professional hunter, whoever they may be back then. Not a mention. And I brought it up one day to the owner, Bill Harper of Loman. I said, hey, there's a call these deer make that is phenomenal. And he, he didn't believe it. He was a deer hunter from Oklahoma and didn't believe it. So I had to show him, and we built the call, and we started showing him, and then the rest is kind of history now.
That's funny that you said you wanted to keep it quiet, because we just interviewed Dan Moultrie a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about when he was coming up with like his trail camera and everything. And when he figured that out, he's like, I didn't tell anybody for like 7 years. He's sitting on one of the biggest inventions ever. And he was like, typical deer hunter, man. He's like, I'm going to keep this to myself.
Well, that's what when we were. Nobody, who would ever think you were going to be in the hunting industry, make you any money or whatever, make a living out of it. I was figuring I was going to work in the mines till I died, or in concrete construction till I died. I never saw going into the hunting industry and making my living and spending majority of my life doing it. It was my passion. It was something I loved to do. But who thought they would do that? So it took me to get in the hunting industry and start working on, they brought me in to work on turkey calls for them because their turkey call line was weak and their box calls sounded like trash. And, some of the things they were selling, I wouldn't use. So they brought me in to make these a little better, make these more user friendly. So it was all about turkey for the most part. And, when I got there, it's like, we're missing the boat here because this deer thing's way bigger than the turkey thing. So that's how it came about, It's you keep those secrets from you for the most part. And I'm hoping there's a few secrets out there that other hunters have that they're not sharing that someday we'll see. I haven't seen any in many, many, many years, but I'm hoping there's still a few things out there that we can discover.
Mm-hmm. Now, when did it go from like just pinching your nose and making a grunt call to, like, I guess when did you get more technical about it? Like trying to find something where you could get more volume or a different tone or just fine tuning it? That
came about when I went to work and explained to Mr. Harper that this grunting thing works on whitetails. So now I'm in the industry. I am tinkering with parts. I mean, they were one of the largest game. They were like number 3 in age behind Olt and Falk, and then Loman. They came in business in 1947 in Kansas City. They were known for their waterfowl and their crow call, and they were branching into turkey. They branched into turkey in the mid 70s. I came along in the late 70s, early 80s as a turkey caller, and he thought I had a little bit of knowledge of how to make things work, and brought me on board. Well, that put me in the middle. I mean, I didn't know turkey call parts from anything, but now I'm stepped into a big turkey, call industry, manufacturing, and I see all these parts, reeds and tubes, and I didn't know nothing about them. But once I got into them, got it there and could see it. Oh, it's like tuning a musical instrument. You can shorten this reed or add this pressure or put it in a bigger funnel, put it in a different, all that started clicking with me. And I realized now, he said, think we can make that sound? I said, yeah. I said, because I was a terrible duck caller at that time. And I'd blow his duck calls, and every once in a while I'd hear hit a sour duck flat note. It sounded kind of like a grunt. So I went out there, and he said, well, see if you can make something up. Went out there and took all these duck parts and different barrels, started playing with them, and came up with a sound that was pretty dang close. And went back into his office, said, here it is. Blew the call, made a little grunt sound, and he just shook his head. He said, I ain't never heard nothing like that. And I said, well, most people haven't, if they're telling the truth. So I said, but it's real. It works. It'll work. This call will work. I promise you. Well, we spent that next fall just using the call, and it worked, and it worked. And we came out with that first grunt call and laughed off the stage. I was laughed at. I was, belittled. I was a young guy. This was like early 80s, and I was a young guy. Now I'm doing seminars and telling people how to, or teaching people how to hunt deer. And I'd go through all the rubber boots and the scent free and the reading the sign, and you go through all that, tree stand placements, and on and on and on. And at the end of the seminar, I said, now I want to share something with you that's not very well known. It's not known at all. And I said, there is this little secret that's coming out that, boy, it works, guys. And I would say, deer make this grunt sound, and they will come to it in the fall. And I picked the call up, and I'd blow it. Well, half the people in the audience would be busting out laughing, laughing at me. Because I'm a young guy, and in the audience, there was a lot of old-timers. And they come up to me afterwards and say, Sonny, you did a good seminar until you got to that stupid call. I ain't never heard a deer do that. I've hunted deer 50 years. I ain't never heard that sound. Sir, I'm sorry, but it's true. It works, So it took a couple years to convince people. Took a lot longer than that for most, but a couple years once Eli Haydale and that group, they built a grunt call. And a couple years down the road, Night and Hale built a grunt call. All of a sudden, you had 2 or 3 or 4 manufacturers building grunt calls and talking about it. And all of a sudden, people started trying it, Most of them reluctantly. But it just took time. People realized, dang. Because when you realize, that, hey, if you only blow it when a deer's out of range, not going to give you an opportunity. If you only used it then, how can it hurt you? Back then, $6, $7 for a call. How can that hurt you if he's already gone or leaving? If you only use it then, it's worth the buy. So you could bring on some logical explanations like that, and people start buying into it. It took quite a while to get people to get aggressive with it and go out to actually try to call a buck in. It took years for that, and it took a lot of research and a lot of sorting out. You get so much false information with it, but people that didn't know what they were even talking about would be preaching on grunting deer and how to, and they were off the mark, many places. So it took a while for that to straighten out. Now you talk to people, I talk to them same old men that laughed at me, they're going to say, oh, I've been doing that since I was a kid. No, you haven't. You're lying. You didn't invent it. You didn't come up, you never even heard of it till I told you about it. And that's kind of the way it was. It was interesting when he came out with it. A guy by the name of Larry Richardson was working deer pens in the University, I may have this wrong, University of Texas, a university in Texas. He was involved in their deer pens, a biologist, I think, student at the time. And he contacted me and he said, we recorded it. We got it on tape. I got it on tape. And he sent me that tape. He called the cassette, it was called The Acoustics of White-tailed Deer. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, he sent me the cassette, and he did capture a grunt from pen-raised bucks. And so that added some validity down the road that, hey, a biologist said it worked. He actually captured it in a pen. Well, that gave some more validity. It just took a while, years, to people realize that, hey, this young guy from Missouri ain't stupid. I mean, it worked for him. I mean, he's just telling you what happened, and so that gave some credibility when other people started documenting the sounds and the success with the calls, and so it worked great. Now it's off and running. Not everybody, but a lot of people are trying it. We're all looking for the best, for the guarantee, the fixes and whatever. That's never changed in human nature. It's not magic. There's days you'll swear it is, and there's other days you're going, didn't work quite so well today. But people want to be successful, and they realize this tool can help, and it has some validity to it now.